infinite complaisance, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So on this episode, I welcome on with me Sam, and she's actually out in Australia, which I'm going to have to talk to you about that before we start talking about your experiences. But we've been in contact for quite a while now, and we're finally getting a chance to discuss all the things that have gone on in your life, which sounds, at the very least, very interesting. So so you are in Australia, and do they grow the spiders as big as we all think that they do out there in your home country?
They're pretty big.
Are they?
They're pretty big. Yeah. The huntsmans. Yeah, they're the big gruesome ones. I think they're really ancient spiders, actually. I looked them up once. They're like dinosaur kind of spiders. So they've been around a long time, and they kind of have a crabby look to them. They have very long legs. Oh yeah, I've encountered ones that have been at least, those side plates that you have your rolls on and stuff like that. Yeah, at least that big.
Oh no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, and they get in the house because they're so flat, so they can kind of scurry in everywhere. So it's I can tell you horror stories about them. I actually, one morning I woke up and I was washing my face at the sink in our bathroom, and I got the towel and I was wiping myself, and I thought, oh, that's a bit scratchy. And so I shook the towel out, and there was a massive huntsman in it. So
my gosh.
I'd wiped it all over my face, which is in equal parts horrifying and assuring because it didn't bite me. And I've always been told that they're actually quite gentle spiders, and they won't bite unless they're really, really provoked. And I couldn't think of a situation where you'd bite more than somebody rubbing your entire body over their face.
Well, that was a really docile one then. He's like, hey, Sam, how's it going? Good morning. Okay.
Fell in the sink and ran away, and I was scarred for life. And I don't put my hand towel on the ring on the wall anymore because I'm scared that it might happen again.
Oh, Sam, that is so nope for me. You know me. I talk ad nauseum about my fear of spiders, and I've come across a couple of large ones here in Nevada, and then a camel spider as well, which is a whole nother basket of hell. But what you just described is just so bad, but also pretty incredible that it did not bite you.
No, maybe it was pressed so flat as I don't know, but it didn't bite me. And they've got really large palps, the fangs and bitey things. And they're very, very gruesome to look at. Very. But, they are gentle. And, hey, they were here before us. So,
And they'll be here after us, too. Once we screw everything up as we're doing, they will be like, see you guys.
What do you say? I welcome our arachnid overlords.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know. But just one more thing about that. It's kind of one of those things where I'd rather just not see it and know. I don't want to know it's there, because once I see it and I can't, take care of it, and it scurries off, as you say, so much for sleep,
Oh, look, some people I know have them in the house and they let them live there everywhere. So I've walked into a person's house and look up and there's like 8 huntsmen all over the walls and the roof. Yeah, because they eat the insects and stuff. And I don't understand it.
Oh, man. That is some... God bless them, because, oh, my gosh. They're like, oh, here's Here's a little puffy and a little spiky, and they got little names for them and stuff.
That's right. They do name them. Yes, I was introduced to them by name, and there was one crawling along the carpet there, and they're like, "Oh, don't tread on whatever its name was, Olive or whatever its name was." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I think I'll just run away now.
Australians are built different. I love it. Just hanging out on the wall. Yeah, if anybody just needs to go look at size comparisons of what we're talking about, just go look up the huntsman spider and you'll see what we're talking about. I don't know about just having them hang out in the house, but okay. So I know that you do have, I mean, as you say, essentially a lifetime of experiences. And I always give everybody the option. Of course, you share what you want. I'm not here to poke and prod you to tell every single little tiny thing that, it's up to you. And also it's up to you. Do you want to start chronological? The very first thing you remember happening, or does it make more sense to start some other way? That is completely up to you, Sam.
I was making notes, and I was thinking about, where I should begin. And I think I should just begin at the very beginning before I was even born. How's that?
That sounds good.
We always had this tale. My dad is English, so he immigrated here in the 1960s, and so his family is all English, and well, they're all dead now. They're English, and so we didn't see them very often. But he used to have this wonderful tale that his mother told him. My dad was born towards the end of World War II. Okay, so he was born in 1945. His mother had married a sailor, so he was in World War II. He was on tankers on the Mediterranean. He was like a convoy kind of thing, They used to do that, and they'd zig and zag and do this big convoy across the Mediterranean, avoiding the Nazi U-boats and stuff like that. They got married shortly before he got sent back to duty. She got pregnant really fast. So she was pregnant with my dad. I think she was, from memory, about 4 or 5 months pregnant with him. My grandfather was on duty doing his thing in the Mediterranean. Because it was wartime in London, there was a lot of bombed out buildings, you can imagine. So families sort of all stayed together. You could have many, many members of even different families living in the one house. Anybody who had room basically opened up their door and let people come and stay because, housing was a premium then. So my grandmother was living with my father's family, so her in-laws. She actually had to share a bed with my grandfather's sister, whose name was Iris. So they were sharing a bed. They'd gone to bed one night. As my grandmother tells it, they woke up to hear her husband and Iris's brother screaming out for them in the middle of the night. And as she puts it, she said, "I just knew he was dead. I knew it because it was so frantic. He was crying out their names and stuff." Sure enough, at that time, he'd been in a collision with another boat. He had his sea boots and everything on. This account was given by his best friend on the tanker. He had his sea boots and everything on, and because the tanker exploded, they were carrying like millions of gallons of oil or something like that. It erupted when it got hit in this collision, and he had no option but to jump, fiery death or jumping into the sea. So he jumped, but he couldn't swim, being a typical English person of the time.
Geez.
And that was it. He died. They never recovered his body. He died before my dad was even born. The only closest my dad's ever got to seeing his dad was his name on the Chatham War Memorial, the Naval War Memorial in England. Yeah, but that was one of the first spooky things in that, the family story was the fact that it was kind of, I guess, like a crisis apparition, but there was no sighting of him. It was just the sound of him crying out.
Mm.
Yeah. So further to that, my dad, when he was born, 4 months or so, 5 months later, he was born with a fall. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do. I've spoken about that several times, but anybody listening that doesn't know, please explain that to them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a membrane like from the amniotic sac or something, and you can actually be born actually entirely in the sac, which is really, really rare. But my father was born just with it over his face and his head. What would you call it? Superstition surrounding that is that whoever holds that or is born with that caul doesn't ever drown. That's the legend behind being born with a caul, is that you won't die by drowning, which I thought was kind of a strange thing. That's what happened to his dad.
Right. That is extremely strange considering that.
And apparently, when my dad was small, my nan did have, like his crewmates and sailors that had hung around in the Navy and that asking if they could buy it, because apparently the superstition is also if you possess it, you can't drown either.
No kidding. I've never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything. I mean, I was told these stories when I was, very, very small. So a lot of it I found out through just Googling, legends about stuff like that. So yeah, but that's true, because she did have people ask if they could actually buy the caul because she kept it. A weird memento.
Yeah, but, that would be strange to buy off somebody, I think. But I guess if you really truly believe that, and especially the kind of folk that she knew, that would be a hot commodity.
Yeah, and this was, a while ago now.
Yeah.
This would have been in the 40s, so that's getting over a while ago now. But yeah, so I was always told that story as a kid, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit spooky. Yeah, I actually went over there, and when I was older, I was probably 18 or something, I went over to England to meet that side of the family, and she told me the story, and it was exactly as my dad had always passed it down.
Which is pretty incredible, because once you start the telephone game, things start to change even slightly. So if it stayed the same after all those years, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it did. Even on my mum's side, my nan's house was always a little strange. This is here in Australia, my grandmother's house. She would always complain that she heard footsteps, and that something would knock on the door, and she'd get up and it wasn't there, and there was nobody there, and we'd kind of just go, oh yeah, okay then, happier. It did actually happen when she had a guest over. So she was very pleased because it affirmed what was happening, because she was home all the time. She had a guest come over and they were having tea and gossip. They both heard somebody knock on the door really loud. The lady that Nan was chatting with said, oh, well, I better get going now, because you've obviously got somebody knocking on the door. So, they get up and there was nobody there. Which was rather strange. So,
and how often did that happen?
Oh, that happened a lot. I did hear the footsteps when I was younger. We had at Nan's house. At Nan's house, we had she had a little walkway down the side of her house, and it had a gate, and it made a very specific noise. You could hear the gate latch, and then you would hear, chomp, 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 chomp. And I'd think, oh, maybe my grandfather's come home for lunch or something like that. And so you'd race out there, but there was never anyone there. And it happened that often, we'd be washing dishes, because the kitchen window faced that little walkway. So we'd be just, washing dishes or in the kitchen doing something, and you would hear it. It just happened that often that we didn't even bother checking.
Wow.
Because we knew that there wouldn't be anybody. Maybe it was some sort of residual thing, or some sort of, the layers might have been thin there or something. And it actually was my grandfather walking in. It just wasn't actually him at the time. I don't know.
What about the knocking? Would it ever occur in the middle of the night and get her up out of bed?
No, I don't remember her ever saying it was in the night.
Well, at least they're respectful in that way. They let her sleep.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, my dad's really very skeptical person. He was over there painting their house one time, the inside of their house one time, and he heard the back door open, because it made a distinctive sound over the carpet, and he heard the back door open, and he was like, oh, hello, who's this? And he went to check, but the door wasn't open and there was nobody there. So he got a little spooked and came home. I remember that, because he was a bit white when he came in the door. I was a kid then. And he's just like, oh, yeah, that's a bit strange. But he went back and put the radio on next time so he couldn't hear anything and finished the painting.
You're like, we all told you.
Yeah, he didn't believe any of that. He just thought my nan was going a bit doolally or something like that. But no, she wasn't. Yeah, so there's those kind of little things going on around, which just were a part of my landscape that I didn't even really think about. But things got really real when my parents made a homemade, and I know this is going to sound so stereotypical again. My parents made a homemade Ouija board. You know, they'd been to a party and they'd played one there. Then they thought they'd set one up at home, and they did the old homemade one that you do. They had like a dinner table, those, not dinner table, those little lap tables with the legs.
Mm-hmm.
They filled out. Yeah, it was a metal one like that with metal legs, and they made this little lap table, and they stuck letters around it, in paper, stuck them down, A, B, C, D, and it just kind of was around the edges. Me and I didn't know, my sister, we didn't know any better because, we thought this is a fun game. So we decided to play the game, We jumped on this with the glass turned upside down, in the middle. I always hear a lot of people say, oh, nothing happened. But for us, we used to have stuff happen. It used to move all the time. I don't think we ever once played that Ouija board where we didn't get the glass to moving. And I know people say this, but I really wasn't pushing it. And I could tell by my sister's shocked face that she wasn't pushing the glass either. And I'd even probably stupidly played it by myself when I was a kid. We were probably about 7 or 8, definitely younger than 10. This is a bit of a while ago because this would have been in the 70s. Yeah, so we just started, playing with this board, and to be honest, I can't even remember what came through on that board. Just, I know it wasn't anything bad because we were never frightened or anything like that, but that changed because there was this one time where we decided to play it where it just was weird. How to explain that? It just wasn't fun, and it felt sort of scary. It was just a different feeling when this, whatever it was started to round on the board. I remember we were asking it questions, and it gave us its name, and it was this really gobbledygook kind of name that, we thought, that's strange. It was just weird. Some ways it was funny. We asked where it was from, and guess what? It said it came from Mars, which I know sounds so silly. But we were like, oh, cool, spaceman, kind of. And it seemed okay. We were asking questions, how old are you? And it was giving answers in the thousands of years old, which was a bit strange. We got bored after a while and we just stopped playing. We had, my sister had this little ritual where she I guess it was a way of closing the board down, and because we didn't even realize, but she would turn the glass up and sort of waft it around so that any spirits or anything would be, let go kind of thing. So she did that. I know, she did that. Then things in the house just got strange. I don't know if it was connected to the board. In my mind, I connect it because it happened so soon after. We stopped playing the board after that because it was sorry?
What's that?
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say something.
No. Oh, did you? Did you hear something? I was even on mute.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll come through once, because I didn't hear anything. I wonder if that'll come through once I'm editing. That's happened before.
Yeah. A couple of times I just heard something go wop, wop, make like a noise. But so the mood changed where we lived. We lived in a flat at the time, so multi-level, and it just became uncomfortable there. And we tried to tell our parents in the only way we could, and of course they were like, it's just your imagination. spooking yourself. And we were like, no, this is really strange. They just, they didn't believe us. And I remember the first event that was really strange that frightened me after this Ouija session thing was that I was laying awake, and we had bunk beds, and I was laying awake. I was in the bottom bunk. I heard we had the door open. I should explain this. We had the bedroom door open, and the way our bunks were, I could see straight out of the bedroom door. They were on the wall back from the door, and I could see straight down the hall to the kitchen. And it was dark, but the door was open. I heard the kitchen door slide shut, and I thought, oh, it's a bit strange because we just usually left that sliding door open. Nobody shut it. It was too small as a kitchen for that. And then I was laying there thinking, okay, maybe one of my parents has got up to have a drink or something. I don't know. But then after the door shut, I started to hear what sounded like every plate, every cup, every kitchen thing all getting juggled around, and it sounded like somebody was taking plates out and slamming them back into the cupboards and rattling things and smacking things down. And it made me scared because I knew that had never happened before. And I don't think that, at that time of the night, if you were going out to get a glass of water, you'd be making that much of a racket. And I thought, I'll just wait and I'll see who's going to come out of the kitchen. Nobody ever did. So that was a bit scary because I definitely heard such a ruckus in there. But yeah, and eventually I went back to sleep, and in the morning there was nothing. The kitchen was tidy, nothing had been moved around or anything like that. So yeah, that was the first thing I remember afterwards. Yeah, things just I wish I could describe it. The atmosphere just got really heavy in the house where, the flat where we were living. Yeah, I just ended up getting, scared. I hadn't said anything to my sister because I think in my child brain I was just thinking, if I just ignore this and forget that this ever happened, then that'll be that, you know. I didn't tell my sister, so she was having things happen to her that she hadn't told me either. And we found this out when we finally got together and we talked about these spooky things that were happening. Yeah, it just got worse and worse. It's funny, like it's just a feeling of presence, a feeling like that you were never alone, just like you were being watched. And it just started to feel quite oppressive. And I actually got really upset with my parents because they would not believe us. For some reason, they didn't feel any of this, or if they did, they weren't going to admit it.
Now, what sorts of things was your sister experiencing?
Oh, gosh. When we finally got together to talk about it, one of the scariest things that she told me was that she'd been sitting on the bottom bunk. We often used to sit on there and grab our books and read and stuff like that. And she'd been in the bedroom. I don't know what I was doing, but she was in the bedroom by herself and she was reading. And she said, suddenly the top, and we had old-fashioned bunks. I have to explain this. They're the ones that had like metal mesh, not wooden slats going across. They were kind of like a metal mesh base. And we had foam mattresses on top. And she said that she saw the bed start to sag down like somebody was in it. So that frightened her because she knew she was in the room by herself. And she said that an arm, the outline of an arm, came down from the bed and kind of flopped in front of where she was sitting. So, yes, which scared her enormously. And then she said she was trying to work out, how do I get around this thing? Because it's obviously on the bunk and its arm is down. How do I get around this thing? So she was kind of scooting towards the end of the bed so that she could get around this arm. But she said the minute she tried to scoot around, it clenched. Like the fingers of it clenched, like it was going to reach for her or something like that. And of course, she screamed and ran out. But yeah, I remember her telling me that, and she was very, very frightened because she's younger than me. So it would have been very, very scary for her when she was like 6 years old or however old she was then.
Now, this arm was a human-looking arm or something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, it was
not
human.
that that's any better. I was just wondering what it looked like. That's horrifying.
Oh, we had like, she was jumping on the bed once, my parents' bed. She was jumping up and down, and she said she was looking at her shadow. She was jumping and, waving. And then she said she stopped jumping, but her shadow jumped up again.
Oh, geez.
And yes, and that really freaked her out too. So she actually saw lots of things that I didn't see. I more heard things and felt things, but she actually kind of saw a lot. And I remember thinking when at that age, like, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see anything. So I don't know whether I just kind of blocked all that off because I really didn't. I didn't want to see anything at all. Wow, gosh, one of the scariest things that happened to me around that time was, and this involved the bunk beds too. I was asleep. The bottom bunk was bad. Things used to happen to you on that bottom bunk. Like, she was sitting on the bottom bunk when she saw the arm and the hand. And I used to always get lumbered with sleeping on the bottom bunk because I was the eldest, so she got the top bunk. Yeah, we always used to have big fights about, like, I don't want to sleep on the bottom bunk. And I don't want to sleep there either. You've got to sleep there. So, we'd fight about it. And I usually lost because she was pretty tough. Yeah, I was sleeping. Well, I wasn't asleep. I was going to sleep. I used to, like, slide my foot into the little pocket that was made between the mattress and the blankets. I don't know. I just used to always pop my foot down in there when I was going to sleep. I'd done that and I was sort of like relaxing, and I felt something grab my foot, grabbed onto it like a hand. So I don't know if it was from under the bed. Look, I really don't know, but it frightened me so bad, and I immediately pulled my foot out, and it let me go as I pulled my foot out, and I absolutely screamed. I was so frightened. I screamed my head off. I remember yelling and yelling and yelling for my mother and father. Nobody came. They claimed they didn't hear anything, but I used to, I used to be angry, like, how did you not? But I came to realize that when these things were happening, it's a bit like when my sister saw the hand and stuff. I didn't hear her screaming either. So it was almost like you had like a bubble around you or something.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly can't explain it. The closest I could get at the time was, I'm going to show my age here, but Get Smart with Maxwell Smart, the spy thing. It was a spy TV show, but it was a comedy, a parody. And they used to have this like cone of silence or something that they'd push a button on the desk and it would come down from the roof and cover them so that nobody could hear their top secret talk. It kind of reminded me of that you would have like this funny bubble around you or something around you that nobody heard you when you called for help. I don't know why. I've never been able to figure that out. But yeah, I definitely screamed my heart out that night. And my sister didn't hear me, and she was just on the top bunk.
Wow.
And my parents didn't hear me either. So all I could do was kind of just be terrified and just go to sleep afterwards. But that wasn't the only thing that happened, because the next thing next, I say, this happened on and off the whole time. When I was on the bed, of course, the bottom bunk, and I'd be trying to go to sleep, and I used to feel something push up from underneath the bed and like jolt you up, like it pushed really, really hard. It would actually, move your body. So I used to kind of like like, I don't know how to explain it, but I'd kind of like do it back. So I'd use my body to kind of like bam down on the bed just to try and stop it from doing it. But it used to do that. There was a lot of nights that happened, just like poking at you and pushing the bed up, and yeah, so you couldn't sleep.
I think I've only heard that one or maybe two other times in all the episodes that I've done on I'm sure that other shows have had it. I'm just saying, for me, I've heard that on ITF. They're kind of going, I know there's nobody under the bed, but I felt it come up from underneath the mattress and physically move my body. And that is so creepy and so wrong.
Yeah, especially when you're a kid, like you want to monster a kid that way. But yeah, because we had like I said, the metal mesh bottoms, it was really easy to just push the whole bed and mattress up, and it would happen so often. And I think maybe that's why my sister didn't like sleeping on the bottom bunk either, because yeah, of all the things that would happen.
Well, it doesn't help that when it got to the point enough to where one of you would emote enough to scream or something, and the parents already didn't believe you guys. It was not even on their radar. Even when it gets to the point of you guys screaming, they didn't even hear you. So you must feel really alone in this whole thing.
Yes, very, very, very isolated. And even today, my parents are very elderly now, but even today, I'll talk to them. I haven't for a while, but when I did talk to them about it, and my mum's like, yeah, I remember you telling me about all that stuff, but I didn't have anything happen to me. So she does remember that I used to always come to her and we'd cry, and suddenly we turned into these problem kids that didn't want to go to sleep, didn't want to go to bed because, our room was just so scary. So yeah, that happens. And I also had this feeling that accompanied whatever this was that was doing this. And this is going to sound really strange, but it felt like something was lightly like rubbing its fingers on my back, like very light. It's not even really like fingertips, but there was a pressure there and it was circular. So I'd feel like this feeling of something rubbing my back in this circular motion, which was disconcerting enough. But what would happen next was even worse, because I would actually, once it did the circular motion for a bit, and it wouldn't matter if I had my back to a wall or I was sitting on the lounge with my back against the lounge, it wouldn't matter. It would still happen. Because I remember slamming back against the lounge trying to get it to stop, but it would just make this circular movement, and then it would feel like it was pulling something out of me. I know that sounds really weird, but it's the only way I can think of to describe the feeling. It was like this circular thing of a feeling, like a swirly thing, and then it would be like something pulling something out of you. At the time, obviously, I had no idea whatever this was. Later I thought, was it taking energy from me? Was it doing something like that? I still to this day don't know, but it was a definite feeling of drawing something from, yeah, and it was on my back towards, very much in the chest area of your back. Yeah,
That's just so invasive.
I know, and it's funny because as I've got older and older, I came to this understanding that it's actually quite abusive. Whatever this phenomena is, it's very abusive. It doesn't ask permission. It just does these things. And so in a way, I suppose it felt a bit like an abusive relationship, because there was always this presence that was scary and made you feel bad and was actually physically touching you, and now doing this strange thing on my back.
And what about your sister? Did she have that sensation ever?
No, it was only me.
Oh, lucky you, right?
Yeah, I know.
Do you remember feeling less energetic or somehow physically different besides the terror of it? I mean, that could also create a difference in how you're feeling, so it's hard to say. But do you remember how you felt after occurrences like that?
No, I didn't feel it. I can't remember feeling any different except for scared and annoyed.
Yeah.
But I can't remember feeling like any different. But sometimes I do wonder because I've been very sick for a lot of my life, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But yeah, it was just really a strange feeling that, I can't, like I say, these are the words I'm using are the closest descriptive words I can think of to actually put a name to what I could feel happening, because there, even though it felt kind of physical, it also, I knew it couldn't be because there was nobody there. There was nobody behind me. There was nobody. I couldn't see anything coming out of my back, but I could definitely feel this like pulling of something out of me.
And there was never any marks if you check back there?
No, no, it was actually probably if it had been, scratchy and hurty, I probably would have reacted more. But it was actually quite gentle, if you want to put it that way. Like the touch, the circular motion was just like fingers just gently circling on your skin, and the whatever was coming out, it just, I don't know, it's just like spaghetti or something. I don't know, coming out.
Yeah,
of you.
that's just nothing. That's nothing good, right? Like that's so invasive and, as you say, so abusive and so wrong to do. I mean, especially to a kid, and it's probably getting a kick out of it because it knows, or they or it, whatever, it knows that your parents are just kind of going, oh, what are you talking about? What do you keep saying? There's something going on. There's nothing going on. Stop it. So you and your sister are just getting dismissed, while in the meantime you're being essentially terrorized. Now, Sam, I don't want to pry at all with your health stuff. You mentioned this stuff in the email, and as much as you want to go into that, you can, of course. But we have heard in the past that a lot of times it's people that do have kind of this ongoing, from a young age experiences, end up having chronic illnesses. Do you recall when some of these illnesses began, or when you began to just simply not feel yourself?
Oh gosh. Well, rheumatoid arthritis I've probably had, when I look back, I mean, there's usually a lapse between when you start showing symptoms and when you get diagnosed, but I've probably had it for 20 years now. Yeah, and I don't know, I always had migraines, even from a very, very young age, where I'd be actually nauseous and, the whole rest of it that goes with migraines. Just things like that. Yeah, as I got older. I also have a spinal condition actually, where that just about where that used to happen in my back, I have a crushed vertebra in there. So yeah, I can't say as there's anything definitive, but yeah, it's just been a lot of ill health, especially now I'm older. And the thing is that whatever that was, I don't know if it actually went away or if it hung around, because my whole life has had all these funny little, I don't know, incidents and stuff. So much that, my kids just expect it all now.
No kidding.
Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear about all your health issues. I can't imagine living with one chronic issue, let alone several. I mean, what about your sister then? Does she have
Well,
any health issues?
she I know she does. I don't. My sister, it kind of destroyed our family relationship a bit. There was more to it than that, but I have not spoken to her in a long time.
Oh,
She
I'm
has
sorry.
chosen to Oh, it's okay. That's her choice. I respect that. She's chosen to distance herself. So, yeah, she's not been too good, I think, mental health wise for a long, long time either. Yeah. So, we eventually moved from that place, and I thought, hey, this is great. But it kind of just stuck around. It wasn't as intense after we moved, but little things happened all the time, strange coincidences or noises or voices or stuff like that. We've always had that happen to us ever since. Oh, there's so many stories. I don't even know where to start. I remember I was one of those people that every house I ever lived in, I thought was haunted. And you have to remember too, this is like in the 80s and the 90s, long before people used to talk about this kind of thing, So I come from kind of that generation where you just didn't talk about it because everybody would think you were mad, or they wouldn't believe you. So why bother? But I'm really glad that lately people have been able to talk about these things. It makes you feel less alone, I guess. But yeah, I can just go through some of the really big things if you like that have happened.
Yeah, please do.
The little things would be like I'd wake up and the lights would be on and the extractor fan range hood thing over the plates would be on full, on to the highest setting, making a racket in the middle of the night, and I'd have to get up and turn it all off. Just they're the little kind of things that happened. But there was one of the really big incidents that happened that really started me thinking about what is this? Can we know what this is doing this and that? Was when my son he was a teenager and he just turned 18, and we were home. This was in our old house we lived in. We were home. He had in childish kind of tantrum decided he was going to have a few drinks because he turned 18 and that's illegal drinking age. So he decided he was going to have a few drinks because I don't know, I'd annoyed him in some way or whatever. Me and my partner, we'd actually gone to bed because like, well, whatever, kid, we'd gone to bed. I heard him, carrying on and shuffling around for a while. And then, yeah, there was silence and I thought, oh, okay, well, he's gone off to do whatever he's going to do. So we were just laying there and talking about teenagers and parenting and stuff like that. We're just like starting to get a little bit sleepy when I have this. I don't know how to describe it. I still have it today. I'll never throw it out. It was like this big long string of like stylized birds made out of cotton, like they're just a bird shape, and they're stuffed and sewn. They're made out of cotton and they're strung on this really long piece of rope. At the bottom of it is one of those like handmade brass bells, the type you see. So we were heading off to sleep, and then we hear that bell ring. Like, it got rung like it was a school bell. It wasn't just one little ding. It was like at least 5 times. It went ding, 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 like very like an alarm almost. We weren't asleep, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what was that?" And I said to my partner, "Did you hear that?" And they said, "Yes." And I thought, "Oh, crap. I'm gonna have to be brave and actually have a look at what this is." So I reached over and I turned on the lamp next to the bed. And when we looked, the actual rope was still swinging. It was swinging away from the wall and then back again, and then away from the wall and then back again in this really, like, when things swing, they kind of go in an arc.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was doing a half arc. So it was kind of like almost getting to the wall and then swinging out again, and then going back and almost getting to the wall and then swinging back out again in this really strange movement. And I remember too, the rope was straight. It wasn't wobbling. When it did this swing, it was straight. I thought that was kind of weird and strange. My partner was thinking, "Oh, I hope something hasn't happened," because it really gave you that feeling of like there was something wrong. There was something wrong, you know? So we couldn't sleep. We sat up. And of course then I got bladder doubt. So I thought, "Oh crap, I have to go to the toilet." Anyway, so I got up, and we didn't have an ensuite or anything, so I had to go out of the bedroom across the hall to the bathroom. And I was on my way. I opened the door and I heard my eldest son making some really bad noises, like choky kind of noises. And I thought, "Oh, this isn't good." So I raced down the hall out into the lounge room where he was. He was laying flat on his back. He'd kind of got really drunk. He was laying on his back, and I could tell he was going to vomit. He was going to throw up. I could tell just by the noises he was making. I had enough time to run down the hall, get into the lounge room, grab him and he's like, 6 foot tall, grab him by both of his arms and pull as hard as I could to sit him up so that when he vomited, he wasn't prone. He actually was kind of sitting up so he didn't like aspirate on his own vomit. Yeah, he was in a pretty bad way. So we ended up calling the ambulance and he got shipped off to hospital and I went with him. They checked him out and he was okay. They put him on a drip. I remember the nurse saying to me, "Don't worry, Mum, he's not going to get the hangover he deserves because we're hydrating him up. But, tell him not to be such a stupid person." So, and I was sitting there by the hospital bed. I'm thinking, what the hell just happened? We saw that, we heard it ring bell, which should never have been able to ring. We see it moving. I get up and I get up just in time to basically save my son's life. So what the hell was that? And it just, for some reason, that incident cracked open my brain in a way, and it started me thinking about things much differently. People talk about in predestination or things happening. And then I think, well, there has to be some modicum of that in our lives. Otherwise, why would that happen before my son Nelly, died? Like,
Yeah.
what? Somebody must have known, or did they just know that he was in that state and they tried to contact us? I don't know. And funnily enough, for being a bit of an angsty teenager, when I actually, we could go home, I said to my son, "You're a lucky bugger. Imagine you had that happen. Somebody has basically intervened in fate and you're still here." He turned around and he looked at me and he said, "Mum, maybe they didn't want you to get hurt. Maybe they want you to go through that. Maybe it isn't anything to do with me at all." So when he said that, it really started me thinking about all of this in a very different way. That it doesn't always have to be a scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there might be more than one thing out there. Or it might be an alternate universe thing, and maybe I rang that bell in an alternate. Who knows? It just
That's true.
made me start to think about this in a totally different way. And in a way made me a bit less frightened of it, because that's been an evolving journey too. Because when this stuff happens to you all the time, it's very easy to be frightened, especially, and there's nothing worse than being frightened living in your own house when you don't know what may happen next. Yeah. So after that happened, there were quite a few things in that house. Like I said, every house I've ever lived in has been a haunted house, apparently. There were quite a few things happened, but it wasn't until we actually got out of the house and moved here where we are now that the kids all really started sharing their stories. Actually, when my partner came to live with us, that was another time where we actually started realizing that everybody was having these strange things happen to them, because my partner, who is American, they've just moved in and they were we had two-story house, and they were standing at the bottom of the stairway, and they rushed up the stairs and said to me, "Okay, what is it with that stairwell? What is it with those stairs?" and I'm like, oh, you can feel it too, can you? So it just, you always wanted to run up those stairs. There was a certain point where you felt something was just chasing you up the stairs. And we all felt that way, but it wasn't until my partner actually said that we all said, "Oh yeah, I don't like those stairs either." But yeah, there's so many things. There's like a whole show's worth of things that just happened in that one house. So do you want me to just land on things that I
Well,
remember?
yeah,
Or
and yeah, before you go on, I just want to say that story that you just shared about your son is pretty incredible. I mean, not only just the circumstances, but that also just totally flip-flopped my thinking on, I mean, as you say, maybe it was you in an alternate universe and wait, get up, Sam, like your son needs help. Or because as I say, it flip-flopped me. So before I was kind of going, man, there's really something sounding pretty dark attached to you and your family, your sister possibly as well. And you kind of said, well, it seems like we keep moving into a haunted house, but it sounds like you're haunted, right? Or your family's haunted in some way, shape, or form. But then that experience, you kind of go, well, was that the same thing that was acting like an a-hole early on and making you and your sister terrified, but it for whatever reason, it wanted to make sure that you took care of your son in that instance, so it has a streak of good in it? Or was that something wholly good and different? Or was that you?
yeah,
Right? I mean, there's all kinds of different options here, but
yes, there is.
for you to go house to house and have all of these things go on, like, by the way, if several nights in a row I had different lights turning on and the hood fan over the stove go on full blast, even and bless you guys, because you're like, well, those are the little things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I had those, the little things go on in different iterations over a night or excuse me, like a week or a month or whatever, I'd start to get a little freaked out. And to you, those are little things. I'm like, my goodness, the things that then you guys are going through is pretty spectacular. And also, like you said, dang it, it's my own house, so it's not that fun. Which I've always said that. What a difference when it's in your own home. So, okay. So I just wanted to say that before you go on, because that last story really flip-flopped things for me. I'm like, well, maybe you do have a little bit of the garden of the good and the evil going on at the same
Yeah,
time, right?
I I always feel that was something else. I don't feel that was the whatever that was that grabbed my foot or was pulling whatever out of me. I feel like it was something else, some sort of other phenomena. Like I say, when you start thinking about it, well, was it a relative, or was it my actual son in another universe, or me in another universe? It just really did crack open that kind of like genie lamp of, you can look at this thing in so many
Right.
ways. Yeah, but yeah, we have problems with the electronics, even in this house. There's a story I can tell. Anyway, well, this thing, whatever it was that we encountered when we were kids, I do feel it stuck around for a while, because we did. I used to get very scared. I'm still, I hate to admit this, but I'm still actually not really greatly comfortable going to sleep still in the dark and that. Yeah, we have a white noise machine now that I turn on, and that has helped enormously, because I feel like I used to always get badgered when I was sleeping by whatever this was, and it made it hard to sleep. So having that white noise machine, it kind of, I don't know if it interferes with it or whatever, but it's helped me sleep. But
Well, what's it been doing that you would have to get the white noise machine? And what kind of things, when you say badgering, I have a feeling that's going to be a whole lot worse than what my consideration of badgering would be. So what is it doing?
Well, for a long time after the incident at the flat we used to live in when I was a kid, I would wake up and there would be this black thing in the room. It kind of, it's funny how this happened, but it would it got closer and closer and closer. So it was kind of when I'd wake up and it would approach me until, yeah, and I would just see it and I would get really scared, and I'd just go head under the blankets, like I'm not dealing with this kind of thing. But as I got older and it started to really interfere with my sleep because it would wake me up and then I'd be scared and I couldn't get back to sleep, I started to get, I don't know, some sort of fierce sense of agency and outrage. So I went from being totally scared to like jumping up out of bed and punching this thing. So and when I started to take my power back, I felt it recede, which I don't know. That sounds silly too, I guess, but like you got to think this is decades of being kind of monstered by some black thing. It didn't look human. It was just like blackness, like they say a black mass. Well, I hate to be again stereotypical, but that is when I heard that phrase. That's like, oh yeah, that's what that is. Showing my age again. There's an episode of Star Trek. It's where Tasha Yar gets killed by this big like black monster that represents everything bad in this big puddle. And it looked kind of like that. It was just like an outline of something that would always be there. It would get closer and closer and closer. And by the time I started to get really, really sick of having this happen to me all the time, I would wake up and I'm telling you, that thing would be centimeters away from my face over the bed. It got that close. And, I used to think with the advent of the internet, I'd look things up and I'd see sleep paralysis and hypnagogic kind of disorders and stuff like that. And I used to think, oh, maybe that's what it is. I mean, when this sort of stuff's happened to you, you'll grasp at anything. But the thing is, though, I'm never paralyzed. I can always move. Like I would jump out of bed, hypnagogic, maybe. But yeah, as this went on, the thing that made me think that maybe it wasn't that was the fact that, yes, I could always move. I was never, ever paralyzed in any way. But when it started to I'd wake up and it would be right next to me or above me, I started to get really angry, like I said, and I'd start jumping up and punching this thing and basically just saying, "You had no right to do this to me. Who do you think you are?" It's like I said, like being in an abusive relationship. I didn't ever give you any permission to get to me like this. So I got really angry. Anyway, it started to...
One sec. When you would throw these punches at it, did it feel like anything?
No, it didn't. It didn't. And it would dissipate. So, yeah, I did never feel anything like when I was punching through. I know, it sounds so silly.
No, it doesn't.
But
it doesn't. And you know what is so cool about it is I've heard very few people say that they actually would get up and get in a physical confrontation with it. Bravo to you. And it would dissipate, which means that you were showing dominance over it. You were saying, "Hey, I'm not afraid of you anymore. You're just ticking me off now."
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, there's always an element of fear, always. It's just instinctual. But it was starting to annoy me and piss me off far more than that. So I'd feel the fear, like, oh, there it is. But then I'd be like, how dare you be there? So I started to get very cranky. So it started to move away from me again. Like it would move, when I'd see it, it would move further and further back until the last time that I had a run-in with it. I was, as per usual, it woke me up because I can always feel it's there. So it woke me up and I sat up and there it was, but it was over in the corner here on the other side of the bedroom. And I wanted so much for my partner to actually see this thing. So I'm like, wake up, it's over there. Look, can't you see that? But I kind of forgot that my partner's really short-sighted and the bedroom's kind of dark. So by the time they actually got their glasses on and had a look, it had dissipated again. So that was my one chance for somebody to actually get a good look at this thing. But yeah, it had gone. But the good thing was that after I started, actually, I did say out loud, I came to that realization that this is no different to being in an abusive relationship. And I don't want to be in that relationship. So I don't know if that had an impact on it. But the reason that I think that thing was only one facet of it is because even though I haven't seen it for a while now, other things happen in the house. And this is my long and winding journey to why do I have a white noise machine in the bedroom. But I used to have a lot of trouble. I would wake up and see things. And I know that's going to sound strange too, but this wasn't the black thing. I would see people usually. It was always very scary. I didn't like that at all. So we got this white noise machine to counter all of that, and I don't know why, but it seems to work. But in the run up to that, we were having troubles. I have a little night light because we've got a little ensuite bathroom off the bedroom, and I have a night light in there, or I used to. I'd put this night light. It just gave this really warm kind of orangey glow, so if you did have to get up and use the toilet, you didn't walk into the wall or something. I kept noticing that it was going off. Like I'd wake up and the light was off, the night light was off. And I thought, oh, that's strange. Maybe there's something wrong with it, maybe the bulb's gone in it, which it's LED, so that would be kind of unlikely. But anyway, yeah, so I would wake up and the room would be pitch black and the lights gone out. And this happened a few times. And then I thought, oh, I wonder what's going on. So I actually looked at the light and I realized it was being switched to the off position. So it had like a on, and then the night light was in the middle. That was like, the night light sensitive switch. So as soon as it got dark, the light would come on. And then there was off down the bottom. And it kept being switched from auto to off. And I was like, oh, okay, so if you don't want the night light on, just let me know. And my partner's like, no, it's not me. I'm not touching the thing. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I thought, maybe this is one of those things because it's mysteriously the light's getting switched off. So I decided, okay, I'll show you. So I got some tape, very sticky tape, and I taped the switch down to the auto position. And I'm like, ha, 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 there you go. That's going to fix that. Well, that very night, I woke up and the light was off again. And I'm like, what the? So I went in there, turned the light on, the big light. The switch had been moved down through the tape to off. Don't ask me how that happened because I cannot tell you. I mean, I used really sticky tape, so it wasn't just like sticky tape or something. I really stuck that thing on auto. But yeah, it had just been slid down to off again. So that was and then the night light got switched off, but our lounge room light got switched on.
Oh, like the entire light for the room, like the overhead light?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And lamps. That happens with lamps too. But the light was on, and I thought, oh man. So I thought, who's out there? Who's doing what? No, there was nobody. Everyone was in bed. Nobody had turned that light on. So that's the kind of sort of little things that happen.
Again, the little
all
things.
The time.
Yeah, if that was happening to me all the time, I would just be like, well, I really have some stuff going on here,
I don't even worry about the lights now.
Right.
I don't worry about them. It's even happened when I've not been in the house, like my partner and I, we'd go visit my partner's family over there in the US. I would always let my girls sleep in our bed because, it's a bigger bed and they could have like, a little party and everything. So, they'd bunk down in our bed. And then when we were away overseas and my daughter tells me, Mum, something turned the lamp on in the And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just turn it off. It happens." She knows that it
Wow.
happens.
So that just follows you everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that was at home. I wasn't there, but that happened to them too, with the lamp.
Well, yeah.
Got switched
What
on.
about that though? What if you do travel? What if you went and stayed in an Airbnb for 2 weeks? Have you ever done that? And there is activity there.
I usually stayed at my partner's mum's house, but we did travel around a bit because I like to have a good old road trip when I go to America because it's such an interesting place. But yeah, no, it's not too bad actually when I'm over there. I always remember that old superstition about crossing water. You know how they say if you cross water, they can't follow you.
Mm-hmm.
There's that old thing. I don't think we've really had that much. I mean, of course, the funny coincidences and that always happen. Yeah, I can't remember anything big happening while we've been there. I know something did happen to other. Something happened to my partner at her mother's house a few times. She's had some weird things happen there. So I don't know. It just seems to be everywhere, I guess. But I'm usually okay there when I stay there.
Maybe you just need to spend more time here in America. Then we have no. Well, no, that's not true. I guess there are some huntsman spiders in Florida and things, but I don't know that they grow them as big in Australia. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure I'll get some entomologists emailing me right after they hear this. But regardless, okay, so Sam, I'm wondering about the whole noise machine thing. I find that interesting because I don't know if, and I'm just going to run this by you. I don't know. I wonder if there's a certain frequency that's in that particular white noise machine that, you're running or whatever iteration it's playing, or if it's simply just the racket of them or it coming into the room and then waking you is just covered up, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it does definitely seem to work. Highly recommend to give it a try.
Whatever
If
works, right?
something's happening in your house. Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't stop all the other funny things like the lights and the footsteps and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm so used to all that now. I'm 55 now, and it's been going on since I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I've kind of gotten used to it as much as you ever could to get used to it, I guess. Yeah, I'm just trying to think like of there's so many things. But I've been really, really glad though that a lot of the things that happen are witnessed or shared with other people, like what happened with my son, because my partner was there and saw the whole bell moving and heard the ring of the bell and everything else. So it kind of, yeah, that incident kind of not only gave me a different insight into what this could actually be, but it kind of validated it all and made me feel a bit more relaxed about it, because I know at the back of your, my mind anyway, I always used to think, well, maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe I'm imagining things, or maybe I'm putting more importance on these things that it shouldn't, I shouldn't be doing that. But when you kind of have somebody else experience something, it kind of validates it. Yeah. But the lights going on and off and seeing things has been, yeah, just my life really. But like I said, I most of the time I just hear things or feel things. I mean, like in this house, we moved in and I really liked it because it seemed to be very neutral when we came to look at it and everything. And that's what I'm going for. We decided this was the house for us. And I remember, I think it was the second or third night we were here. Because a new house and that, I wasn't sleeping too well, so I got up and I went out to the kitchen to make a cup of tea. And I sat there, I had a cup of tea, and I walked back. And on the way, I felt something grab me. I actually felt fingers on me, on my side, down near my hip. I felt something touch me. And I thought, uh-oh, here we go. And that's happened a few times in this house. I've been touched. Also, not long ago, I had gotten up. I was in our bathroom, and I was just standing at the sink, and that I felt what distinctly felt like a cat's ear. You know, cats have really velvety, soft ears.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like what felt like a cat rub my leg. It was very, very distinctive. I got back into bed and I said to my partner, I just felt a cat rub my leg. And she's like, oh, the cat's in the room. Because we do have two cats, but the cat wasn't in the room. They sleep with my kids because the dogs sleep with us. So, it's a big cat-dog war. But, the cats sleep with the kids and the dogs sleep with us. So, yeah, but it was a very distinctive feeling of just something like a cat's ear rubbing along my, leg.
It's too bad you rubbing the spider on your face was actually happening,
Yes.
though. That would have been nice if that was just a ghost spider.
Yes.
Well, Sam, what about your partner? Prior to being with you, had she had any experiences? Is she sensitive at all?
Yes, I think she'd had a few things happen. She'd heard at her mum's house, she'd heard a voice call her name. She said it sounded like I think it was her grandfather that was staying with them at the time, but she got really spooked because it wasn't him. They shared a room, and she thought that he was calling out for her, but it wasn't him at all.
So it was like something or someone that was trying to sound like him but couldn't get it quite right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they call it like a mimic, or something like that. That's a new term I've learned too. And I know one time she had something pull the blanket off her bed, like down to her bed was near the window, the wall. So it sat against the wall, the length of it, and something pulled her blanket down on that side near the window where there was no gap. And that frightened her.
I mean, you're you're so vulnerable when you're laying in bed. And that's why there's so many damn memes about don't let your feet hang over the bed and make sure your feet are covered. And, I mean, I'm sure when you get, well now, and your partner too, when you guys see those memes, you're like, yeah, and it's not funny, because it happens.
No.
Things do grab you.
Yeah. I have never, ever slept with my foot down between the mattress and the blankets in that little pocket. I have never done that since that thing grabbed my foot when I was a small child.
I'll bet.
I will not risk it. I still sleep. Here I am, 55 years old, and I'm admitting this. I still sleep with the blankets over my head of a night.
Do you?
It frightened me. Yes, it's just continuous, and it did. It's almost like trauma, something like that.
Well, between that and then the black mass, I mean, and the people, you said that at one point there was people in the room.
Oh yeah, we had an acquaintance, and they had unfortunately decided to not be alive anymore. And I didn't know about any of this, but I woke up and I saw them, and they were by the bed, and their neck was at a really strange angle. And then I subsequently found out that that person had taken their own life. That method.
Oh my gosh.
That's just a very small slice of the things I've seen.
Was it that day or that evening or the next day? I mean, you didn't know at the time, but
no, it was probably a few weeks.
Oh my
gosh. I'm saying from what the other one was there's so many that, believe it or not, they go out of my mind. It's like my memory can't remember, so I can only remember the ones that really affected me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I woke up and there was an airman, military kind of uniform. He was there, and I'm like, oh, who are you? And he said, I came with your son. And I said, oh, okay. And I remembered that my ex had taken the boys to an air show. like the old vintage aircraft and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he just didn't know where to go. He came home with them, then started standing around in my bedroom.
Wow. I mean, it's like it's like moths to a flame with you.
I don't want to be a flame. I would rather
I don't
none
blame
of
you.
this. I would rather that this had never happened. Honestly, and I mean, it's a bit better now because I think people are a bit more open to the fact that these things happen, maybe. But back in the day, mm-mm, you don't. And even now, I don't tell people all this stuff.
Right.
But well, here I am telling a lot of people all this stuff. But yeah,
No,
I
I know what you
usually
mean.
don't.
Yeah, and just in your everyday
Don't
life,
lead with that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Sam.
I-
Like, I see black masses in my bedroom and they turn the lights on and off. How
yeah,
about you? Like, what
yeah,
goes on in your house? Like, I mean,
that's right.
do you feel that, and there's no way to know, of course, but, when you take the snapshot and you try to trace it back and the whys and the how, do you really feel that had you and your sister not played with that homemade Ouija board that your parents made, and because you had played it for quite a while, and then all of a sudden you had this other thing with the gobbledygook name that came through, and it actually changed the tone of the whole house. Do you feel that that's the source of all of this, or at least it kicked the door open for things?
I'm not sure. I have thought about that a lot. Like if we hadn't played that party game in inverted commas, would all of this be happening? But then I remember that there's so much other stuff. Even like I was saying, like my grandmother's story and my other grandmother's story, and I honestly really don't know. But I think yeah, I might have not had to have had that horrible black thing in my life maybe if we hadn't done that. It seemed to just stick around me, but I don't know. But like I said, my sister never had that feeling of energy or whatever the hell it was getting pulled. She never had that feeling. So if that's what it was, if it was taking energy or taking something from me, then it seemed to be concentrating on me that way. I don't know.
Yeah, and if it follows the family line, as you mentioned, I mean, what are you supposed to do about it, right? I mean, then even if you didn't play the homemade Ouija board, this all still may have happened anyway.
Yeah, that's true. It might have just been now you had a gobbledygook name to give it. I really don't know.
Right, and
But,
that's why I'm not trying to say, oh Sam, it's your fault. You played the Ouija. I don't, because I mean
no.
we don't know. We don't know any of how
and
it
we
all
knew
started.
even less back then, I think, especially as a child. I mean, like what would goes to me, Scooby Doo, Casper. It wasn't. I didn't have anything in my life at that time that would point to anything
Right.
dark about that sort of stuff. And I guess, yeah, in our childish ways, we were just trying to put names or descriptions to something that was totally out of our sphere of experience entirely. Yeah, I mean, I'm something that happened recently. I was talking to my partner. We were, going to go to sleep, and we were just chatting, as you do, me with my blanket over my head. And I said something. The dog had done something because he sleeps in between us, and I'd knocked him accidentally or something. And I said to our dog Dash, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Dash. That definitely isn't my love language." And then I distinctly heard this voice, a female voice, say, "Mine either." And I was kind of like, "Oh," and it got me, and I thought, you know what? I want to sleep well tonight, so I'm not going to ask Deborah if that was her, my wife. I'm not going to ask if that was her saying that. But even at the time, I knew it couldn't be because it wasn't her voice, and it had an Australian accent.
No way. Now, did she hear that?
Yes. No. No, she didn't.
Oh, it must be so frustrating.
She drifted off by then, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she didn't. And in the morning I said, "Hey, when I was talking, remember I accidentally jostled Dash and I said that, and she said, "Yeah, I remember something like that." I said, "Well, did you say mine either? It's not, because I was talking about my love languages and to, smack the dog." And she's like, "No." But like I said, I already knew. That's why I feel like I'm not going to ask because I already know, but I want to sleep. So, yeah, that happened just a few weeks ago, maybe. But that's the kind of thing that just happens all the time. It's just happens so often, that kind of thing, that I just don't even think about it anymore.
Geez, Sam. I mean, no wonder you sleep with your feet tucked in. I'd be so tucked in I'd look like a mummy, including the blanket over my head. That sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty hot in summer, but even the heat of summer can't make me take it. At least the sheet, I have to have something covering, especially my ear, because of the talking and stuff. I like to have something go like.
How much talking do you hear?
Oh,
I mean, I know the white noise helps now, but
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I've heard it. Oh, there's lots of things. Many times. Sometimes it's just my name. I've had my name called. I remember at the old house, the one house we lived in before this one. This is where the thing happened with my son. So that same house, I remember I was in bed. I was alone this time because this was after I was divorced. I was just laying there and I was asleep and I heard somebody call my name, Sam. It was said, like wake up kind of thing. And I thought, wow, it's kind of strange. Who'd be calling me? So, of course, I got up and made sure the kids were all okay, which they were. But as I got up and I went to walk through the door, I felt like I was walking through a spider web, like just cobwebs. And I thought, oh, that's strange. There must be a spider or something in the house. I mean, I hadn't even heard any other stories. This was before the internet. I hadn't even heard any stories of, people feeling spirits feel like cobwebs and stuff like that. That's what I've heard. But I did. It felt like I was walking through cobwebs and spider webs or something like that. So I don't know what that was, but that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I mean, I figured, oh, well, it just is what it is. So I'll go back to bed.
Do you ever walk
Everybody was
through
fine.
electricity, like crackly air or anything like that in spots of the house?
No, never have. Not that kind of feeling. It's just like, it just felt like, like walking into cobwebs. But they dissipated. It didn't feel like, when you walk into a spider's web or something, it will stick on you. They're very sticky.
You weren't like pulling it, like trying to pull it off your face. Like
No.
you knew that it wasn't actually
I did a bit, but there was nothing there. But it was it was expansive. It wasn't just a little thing. I felt my whole face and arms and stuff get covered in like what I thought was like a spider web or a cobweb or something like that. But yeah. One of the other significant things that happened in that house. How much time have we got? Another significant thing that happened in that house was I didn't have terms of reference for this at the time, but I think I had a visitation kind of dream, if you want to call it that. I was asleep. I heard my grandfather call me. I got up. Well, I was dreaming this, I think. I got up and I went out and down. My bedroom was down the bottom of the hallway. That's all the bedrooms came off this hallway. And he was standing at the end of that hallway down near the dining room. I walked out and I saw him and he looked like my granddad, except younger. He was wearing the same sort of clothes. My granddad wore his trousers and his plaid shirt, and he dressed pretty much the same all the time, and he was dressed in that style of clothing, but he looked different, not old, not stressed. And I said to him, we always used to call my grandfather Fred. We didn't call him granddad or anything like that. We called him Fred. his name wasn't even Fred, but that's what we called him. Don't ask me why. So I walked out and I said, "Oh, Fred, you you look so good. Like, what are you doing here, standing in my hallway?" And he said to me, "I'm coming to you looking this way so you'll recognize who I am, but this isn't what I look like anymore." And I said, "Oh, okay." Mm. And then he said, "Oh, I want to show you something. Come with me." So he took my hand and we went off. I don't know how this happened, but I ended up in this field with him. And there was just all this golden, beautiful grass. It looked like, I'm going to date myself again here, but it looked a bit like Little House on the Prairie. There's that field at the beginning, and the girl tumbles down. It looked like that. It was this field of just like golden grasses or something. I said to him, "Wow, like, what is this place?" And he sort of like just sort of said, "This is where we all come from, basically." And I said, "Oh." And of course, here I have the opportunity to ask, a relative who's having a visitation with a really important question about life, the universe, and everything. But the only thing I could think to ask him was if he got bored.
That's a valid question.
I said to him, "Don't you get bored here? You've got eternity. Like, don't you get bored?" And he said to me, "Whatever you do fulfills you totally until you decide to do something else." So that's what he said to me. I got from that you don't get bored there.
Yeah. I like that. I'll take that.
Yeah, whatever you do fulfills you totally. So until you decide to do something else. And then he showed me an example. We went to like a seashore side, and there was like sand, and you could scoop the sand up and you could see it all microscopically, like all the little components of sand, like the jewel colors and shells, fragments and stuff like that. And you could do that for as long as you wanted to, and then you would decide to do something else. So that was kind of, yeah. And then he said he kind of left me at that stage. And he actually said to me, "This is how we think of you here." And he hugged me. And that's when it turned into something a bit different, because the hug I got, it felt like it wasn't from him. It was like from, and I know how this sounds, even telling this story, it was like the hug from some sort of giant, big being comprised solely of unconditional love. Okay? So when it was like, "This is how we think of you here," I got enveloped in this thing, and it kind of X-rayed me. That's the only way I could put it. It X-rayed me, and it looked into my soul, I guess. I thought of all these things. It was like some sort of, I know, stereotypical again, but I was looking like at my life, but not like a life review, mainly from the emotional parts of my life, like how I treat people or how people, treat me, that sort of stuff. And so I was examining all of this. I said, "Oh, I'm too impatient with my kids." I have 4 kids under 5, so I'm too impatient with my kids, and I need to be better. And this thing would just say, "I know, but I love you," like that. And then I'd go through a little bit more again. I'd say, "Oh, I haven't done this right. I haven't treated these people properly. I'm so impatient," and the voice was like, "I know, but I still love you." And it was just like the most unconditional love that you can't even. And I actually communicated. I sort of said, "Well, why can't we have this? Why can't we feel this as humans?" And it said to me, "Because the way you are there, you need to have your love returned to you. If you give out love, you want it returned. If it doesn't get returned, then your love will slowly die. Okay, it will die away. And it said to me, but I'm not like that. I love you and I love unconditionally. So I'm capable of that. But you and in your human life are not. Humans just can't do that. So I thought, wow, okay, that's pretty deep. And I at this time I was crying because I've never felt anything so comforting and supportive. And just to admit, there are times when I am not the best human being, but it's okay because it still loves you. So I kind of like got the message that's like it's time to go now. Our time's up basically. And then I woke up in my bed and I was crying my eyes out, and I still remember this. I woke up and I was saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, over and over and over again. Yeah, I often think, well, people say, oh, well, dreams can be, very emotional, especially, my grandfather had probably been dead about 20 years at this stage. So it wasn't like I was grieving for him or anything. So yeah, I honestly, yeah, it's just another one of those really weird things that happened. But it did kind of like, uh, how can I put this? Whenever I'm scared now, I always call on that source of unconditional love to, fill the house and protect us all and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe that did come at a time when you needed it. I mean, not that you probably could have used that in a lot of instances from what I'm hearing, but maybe you needed to hear it at that point more than others.
Yeah, yeah, and people do say, like I was saying, people say, "Oh, well, you dream," and blah. But I can remember every second of that dream and every word that was spoken to me and every word I said, and it's been a lot of years, a lot of years.
Well, no matter what, then it's just positive, and it's good that you can still utilize it, no matter what,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and in fact, that he's been dead a lot longer than that. I'm forgetting how old I am. He's been dead a long time now, my grandfather, more than 20 years, because this dream probably happened 20 years ago. So yeah, I've never forgotten 1 second of it though, and it's the only dream that I've ever had that I actually remember from beginning to end, consciously, of a day whenever I want to. So I think it was a bit special in that way.
Not that you probably would want to, I guess it'd be poking the bear, essentially. I don't know, in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure some would agree with that assessment. But have you ever, with as sensitive as you are, which obviously you are, there's things that are attracted to you for better or worse. Have you ever even accidentally astral projected or tried to remote view, anything like that?
No, no, I never have. I've never tried anything like that. I think I'm a bit too frightened to actually do anything like that.
Yeah.
I have, funnily enough, I remember one time, I had some tarot cards and I was doing a reading, for fun, for somebody, and I turned over the card. Can't even remember the name. Like it's been so long. This is when I was younger, and it was oh, which card was it? It's the one that has like was it the no, it wasn't it might have been the Emperor. But I remember I focused on one detail of it and I just got this message that she had this sick friend and she needed to watch TV because she was going to get an answer to what was wrong with her friend on the television. And she came back a few months later and she said, "You know what? I was watching this TV show and they were talking about a disease you can get from caged birds. It's like a lung disease thing." And it tweaked in my head that you'd said that. And I told my friend and she went and got tested and that's exactly what she had.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was really weird. But I just, yeah, I don't do that, the cards or anything. I try not to do them too much these days. But yeah, I remember that one. Every now and then you get something like that happen where you think, that was a little strange. it was some sort of disease that you catch from like parrots and caged birds, and that's what she actually had. And the doctors hadn't thought to test her for that, but that's what it turned out to be. But yeah, there was, like I said, there's been lots of strange things happen, especially the last house we lived with was like, that's where I saw like a kind of an orb kind of thing. Oh, there's so much. And I'm wary because there's so much that you say it that it sort of sounds almost unbelievable. But I can guarantee that it all did happen.
No, it doesn't. I've had many people on that just have essentially a laundry list of things.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't sound unbelievable at all. I mean, so this orb was always indoors?
No, it was outside. It was, I remember it was a Wednesday morning and we had a two-story house, like I said, and we had these two big windows that faced west and they faced out into the street. It was a cul-de-sac. So I got up this Wednesday morning thinking nothing, I'd have to get the kids up for school, blah, blah, blah. And I flung those curtains back, and from around my neighbour's house, she was at the bulby end of the cul-de-sac over there, from behind their house, I saw this like orb thing. It looked like a bit like a soap bubble, but it was like a peachy kind of colour. I know, strange. And it came whizzing from around her house, came around the front of her house, whizzed in front of the window, and then went shooting up over towards the forest that was behind our house and just disappeared.
I mean, I guess there's at least one thing that's not in your face, literally, but still very odd.
Yeah, it was a bit weird.
Now, what about, you mentioned the stairwell in the home that you're in now, and that even right out of the gate, your partner was like, yeah, there's a weird spot. And everybody had the same feeling in that same spot. Have you ever had a vision or seen it? Is there something separate kind of going on there?
Yeah. Well, that was in our old house, actually, where because we had the 2 stories. So that was at the bottom landing that you always felt you'd get about 2-3 steps up from that bottom landing, and then it was like run, which, believe me, is hard for me. I'd more like hobble up the stairs, but you would get this urgent feeling to just get off that stairwell. Deborah did say to me that she saw something at the bottom of the stairs, like an old lady. She saw a glimpse of an old lady. I don't know. I never saw it. Like I said, I didn't see that. Whatever it was, it didn't want me to see it.
Well, that's good because you've seen enough, right?
Yes, I did feel the sense of presence there, though. Like, yeah, I felt it was very disapproving of my relationship. Put it that way. I felt great disapproval coming from whoever this female.
The judgy old lady. Was. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I know Deborah had the light turned off on her in the garage because she had like set up a workshop down there, and so she was in there tooling around with all the stuff in there and arranging things and stuff. It was quite a large garage, and it had a light switch near the door, and she was over there and doing stuff at her bench. She heard the light go click, and then she was in total darkness because this was an evening. She said to me, do you know how brave I had to be to walk across that entire garage floor to turn that light back on? Because it had actually been flipped off.
Oh, no.
But she wasn't. Oh, yeah, physically flipped off. And she wasn't the only one that happened to. That happened to quite a few family members. They'd be in there and the light would get turned off on them. My son actually thought it was a blackout. He came roaring out. He's like, is the electricity off? And we're like, no. We're watching TV. the electricity's fine. He's like, but the light went out it had been turned off. We went down there and turned it back on again.
I mean, all these things around you, they seem to have access to quite a bit of energy. I mean, because you hear of certain quote unquote hauntings or whatever the activity is, and your little things could be, over time, really big essentially a classic haunting situation, right? Footsteps and lights and voices. But you have like the graduated stuff that, I don't know, it just seems like they have access to a lot of energy. I don't know how else to put that.
Maybe. I don't know. If they do, I don't know. I don't feel very energetic. They've taken it all. But,
yeah. I mean, wherever they're getting it from, which we could surmise was or is you, but
there could be something to that, because another thing that happened that was witnessed was quite a few years ago. My daughter had Graves' disease, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's an autoimmune disease where your thyroid gets attacked by your own antibodies, and it gets very irritated and vascular, and it starts pumping out a whole heap of thyroid hormone. So it makes you very sick, jittery, and jumpy. And I'm sorry, now my brain's just gone. What was I talking about?
No, that's
Can you
okay.
remind me?
No, that sounds awful.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. What happened to me? So yeah, she gets that. It has to be your thyroid. They end up medicating you to suppress your uptake of the thyroid hormone. That's all they can do till you either have, it burns itself out, or you have an operation, or you take radioactive iodine capsule. So she was on this very important medication that blocked these hormones. She was very, very, very overactive with her thyroid. It was making her very sick. And so we had to give her pills every day. And then there was a medication shortage. So I couldn't get her medication. And I was phoning around chemists everywhere, trying to find one that had at least some supply of these pills. We thought we could eke it out. Rang a specialist. There was just a huge medical shortage. And I got very cranky about that. I was so mad, because I'm thinking, how could you let such an essential medication run out? Surely somebody's got some somewhere. So we were in the shopping. I remember we were shopping in our grocery store, and I was walking down the aisle with my partner, and I was just going off. I was so mad because I was so worried and stressed out about what we were going to do to manage Kathleen's illness if we couldn't get her medication. We both saw it at the same time. We were walking down the aisle. It was the kitchen aisle, so there was like mixing bowls and electric mixers and fry pans and all that on the racks. They hang them by the little hole in the handle of the fry pan on those little long sticks that come out. So they weren't sitting on a shelf. They were actually slid onto a rod, by their little holes in their handles. I was going off, and we were walking down, and we both stopped short because we saw this quite heavy fry pan. Well, it had a heavy base anyway. It lifted up in the air. It came off the hook. It flew across the whole aisle of the supermarket and hit the other side of the shelf and fell on the floor. It fell on the floor with a big clatter. And it was really funny because, my partner looked at me and said, "You need to calm down."
Yeah, she knew who did that. She knew exactly what went on then.
So if we are looking at energy, maybe there is something energetic there, in emotions or fear, or, that anger or something that whichever this mysterious they is, that they can use, or something like that. I'm not sure, but that was witnessed too by my partner. Yeah, I can tell you about some of the coincidences that happen. One day, I used to catch the bus into uni, because I went back to uni and did my undergrad there. And my daughter, because I was a mature age student, my daughter was actually going to university at the same time. So we'd often catch the same bus together, because we'd have classes on at the same time. So we were sitting in the bus, and my daughter, she's quite tall, so she liked to sit in front of me on her own seat, because, she takes up a lot of room. And so I sat behind her, and we're, just going along on the bus. And we got to one particular bus stop, and this lady got on. She was only a young lady, she came, and of course she sat next to me. And my daughter, I could see my daughter sitting in front of me go, oh gosh, because she didn't want anyone to sit next to her. So she came and sat next to me. And then she started talking to me. I hadn't even said hello or anything, but she turned to me and she said, I had something really funny happen this morning. And I said, oh, did you? And she said, yeah, I found out that my friend and his wife, they went overseas. I think they went to Hawaii, she said. They went to Hawaii and he was really sick and he died. And I said, oh, wow, that's awful. And she said, yeah, nobody knew he was sick. And I said, oh, wow. Anyway, so she only stayed on for a couple of stops and then she got off at one of the great big bus stops. And my daughter sort of turned around and was like, see, you get stuck with all the weirdos. She didn't sit next to me, ha, ha, ha. Anyway, so I didn't think any more of that story. And then that very same week, I think this was on a Tuesday, and that very same week on the Friday, I went to visit a friend. So I was sitting in her place and I just said, oh, how's it going? And she said, oh, well, yeah, I had, one of my friends, she and her husband, they were going on this holiday to Hawaii, and I heard that he'd taken really sick. She told me he'd got really sick, and I don't know what's happening over there, so it's stressing me out a bit. And I just said to her, I shouldn't have, but I just said to her, oh, he's dead. And she said, what? And I said, he's dead. And I said to her, I'll tell you what happened. And I told her the story about, it was the same people that we were talking about.
Oh my gosh.
It was the same people, except this person the lady who got on the bus knew the husband and my friend knew the wife.
Oh my goodness.
And I said to her, and I just blurted out, and she's like, what? Because that was a bit blunt. And she's like, you don't even know them. I don't know them. I have no idea who these people are. She's like, how the hell could you know that? And I'm like, because I've heard this story before.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it actually was the same people. Apparently he had acute leukemia and he didn't know. And going over there, he got really sick on their holiday and died in hospital. Yeah.
That took him fast then.
Yeah. He'd been feeling unwell, but he didn't know he was that sick. And there was nothing they could do.
I mean, Sam, after listening to the frying pan story, right? Like you're so angry and stressed, which I'm a mom. I can only imagine how that would feel, right? Like there's something out there that could help her. And because humans are humans, there is a shortage and there's no hope for her right now. With the frying pan story, is there a correlation between times of stress or worry, anger, whatever, that activity ramps up around you?
I think, yeah, probably. It's usually when I'm the most stressed that things happen. So I would say probably if I look back and try and correlate it. But yeah, it doesn't absolutely have to be like that. Like the other house we lived in must have just been weird because things happened all the time, and it didn't really matter what mood you were in. It would just happen.
Well, and as you say, you've told me several stories about just going to bed and you're having a conversation with Deborah and then things go down, so and nothing's going on stressful, or you're not fighting. There's nothing going on, so
no. It's just there's like I said, I've got so many stories. Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's been a while, so I don't want to talk your ear off. But
I mean, but you would like all of it to just stop, right? I mean, you don't feel that it serves you really to have whatever this or they are or whatever it is in your life, right? You would like it to just buzz off.
Yes. Yeah, that would probably be preferable. if I didn't. But at the same time, I guess it's kind of reassuring in a way that, I mean, I've come so far in my thinking about this. I don't even know if what this is even accessible to us. I used to think, oh well, when I kick the bucket, I might have some answers. But now I'm not that confident. I don't know if it's actually involved in humanity as a part of us in that way. It may be something so alien and so different that it's just another form of life. It may have nothing to do with us, and we may not learn anything after we shuffle off. I don't know. So yeah, it's made me think about everything in a totally different way.
So almost like we're a form of entertainment in some way?
Maybe.
That's sad to think about, isn't it? Like we're looking for answers for things, and they're just like, we just like poking at you sometimes,
Yeah, just, push your bed up from underneath and see how
no
how
big
you go with
deal. We'll
that.
just traumatize you for the rest of your life, and you have to sleep with a sheet over your head and white noise blaring in your ears just to go to sleep. How nice. There you go.
So, but yeah, I do. It's just, I guess just the array of different things and how I feel that it's different, but then I don't know, because could it all just be the one same thing with many different
right
heads, like some sort of hydra kind of monster? It's all coming from the same source, but you get all these different angles of it or something. I'm honestly not sure. It's definitely made me think about things in a completely different way. When people tell me their stories or whatever, I just think, it's really interesting. We don't know what it is. Was it my grandfather in that? I don't know.
right
Was it? Well, who rang that bell? I don't know. Who turns our lights on and on? I don't know. You know, but it does always. There's some commonalities that always do make me question, like, why kitchens? Why throwing plates around? I've heard that story now that, there's the internet, everything. I've heard people say very similar, or read very similar things, that, it opens kitchen cupboard doors. It's like, well, why? Why always open doors? What is that symbolic of? There seems to be a lot of similarities in a lot of it, is what I'm saying. They seem to have these party tricks, lights going on and off, and yeah, like I was saying, cupboard doors opening and shutting. Why be in closets? Why be in kitchen? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and stairwells and hallways, they seem to like those areas too. A lot of people
Yes.
get weird feelings, and there's always like that one hallway, and they're as you say with the stairwell in the other home. It's like, get past that spot real quick. I mean, yeah, why can't they run a friggin' vacuum sometimes? Be helpful instead of just turning lights on and banging the cupboards around.
Yeah. But it just intrigues me how common that is. How it's almost like there's a textbook almost thing. It starts off like this and then it does this, and I'm sure people have noticed that. But yeah, it does make me wonder why, if you can do these things, do you hang around in your kitchen? Or yeah. And it's upsetting to me too that people, don't take you seriously, I guess, because I often think, I guess the nature of the phenomena, it can't be, what would you say, conjured up on demand or something. But I often wonder if something has the ability to manipulate physics to the point where it can actually physically turn off the light switch or reach out and grab you, that's a great source of untapped energy that we could probably use.
Yeah.
But you have to, get people to seriously study it, I guess.
I mean, maybe
that,
that's what they've got going on with the at CERN. Maybe they are tapping into something like that, But of course, people think that we're gonna open the portal to hell. But I'm all for it. I'm like, let's figure this out. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, we often joke about that. I say if they've been firing off that collider again because I feel like I've changed universes again. This cannot be Universe Prime. It is so stuffed up. There is no way this is Universe Prime. It has to be some weird offshoot or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to know. That's the bit that disappoints me because it might, like I said, it might just be some sort of phenomena that is so alien to us that doesn't really have anything to do with us except to interact in these weird ways. Or I don't know. I really don't know.
This might be difficult to answer, but what's the longest you've gone without any activity?
Oh, gosh. Maybe weeks? Yeah, the voice, neither, the kind of voice, that was just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
But since you were
We
7 or
often
8, you've had things going on every few weeks, at least some, even if it's
Right,
a
yeah.
little thing.
Yeah, even if it's just a
God.
silly coincidence, like the bus coincidence,
Right.
or I know another coincidence. One time I was in my studio and I was really interested. I was looking up ancient civilizations and stuff, and I lighted upon. I think it's pronounced, and if I'm pronouncing this wrong, I'm so sorry. But it was Xibalba, which is one of the layers of the underworld. I think Incan kind of thing. It starts with an X. You can look it up. But I've been really looking into this place and this whole idea of layers of the afterlife, like Dante's Inferno and all that sort of stuff. So I was just looking at comparative cultures and how they viewed the afterlife and that. So I was really into this, and I wrote the word down. And I was, how do you say this? I was googling everything, and then I finished, and I was just packing up my stuff and going to go to the little kitchenette and make a cuppa, and in walks one of the students, and he had a band shirt on, and guess what was written on the front of it? Shubalba.
That's cool.
Yeah, so little things like that happens all the time, and I'm just like, oh, of course that happened, of course. As I was just looking at that, so he would walk in, 15 minutes later with that shirt on.
See, but and what does that mean, if anything, right? Does that mean that
That's
there
the
is
thing.
that layer of the underworld? So what does it mean?
That's the thing. I always ask that. That's exactly why does this happen? What the
What are you
hell does
trying
this
to tell
mean?
me? Yeah.
Why bother if it's so like that? And then when I found out about people who think the world is a big computer simulation,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, yeah, I can get behind that, except I've got the most laziest programmer that ever existed, because they're like, oh yeah, Shabalba, okay, what do I put on his shirt? Oh, here you go.
You're like,
So
gosh,
yeah,
low hanging fruit, huh, guys?
yes, I know. I know it's that ridiculous. It's like my simulation programmer must be asleep on the job a lot of the time, and just yeah, oh yeah, that's what we'll do. We have this story about the person that died, and here's that story again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Of
that must
all
be
the
really.
people to run across, that's just, you're going, really right now?
No, and it was a stranger, so why tell me that? I've
Yeah.
never
Why
met
did
that
you need
woman
to
before.
know that information ahead of
I
time? I don't,
don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. I've never seen her again. I mean, she's probably out there somewhere, but yeah. And it was just funny because after she got off and my daughter had overheard the conversation, she's like, wow, Mum, you always gather the weirdos to sit next to you on the bus. Like I said, I thought, yeah, that was kind of weird. She didn't tell me her name. She just sat down and said, oh, this, yeah, upsetting thing this morning that I found out. And I'm just like, oh. And then I hear the other half of the story from another, well, a friend I go to visit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll either name your episode I have a lazy programmer or the weirdo
Oh,
collector.
that would work. That would work, because I cannot tell you so many times that happens. It's like I was talking to my son just the other day, and we were talking about something, and I said, oh well, when you used to die back when I was young, they'd say you popped your clogs. I don't know if you've heard that. That they would to say you died, it's like bought the farm or something like that, but they'd say popped your clogs. They pop their clogs. My son's like, oh, I've never heard of that. That's so, you know. And I said, yeah, that's what they say. And then what do you know, where I'm listening to, I think it was some sort of, I don't know, something that I was listening to. And the narrator guy goes, he talks about pop your clogs. And I said to Liam, there you go. We were just talking about that this morning, remember? And he's like, wow, I've never heard that before. And now I've heard it twice in one day.
Yeah.
And I said, well,
that stuff's weird.
That's because I've got a really lazy programmer.
Yeah, that stuff's weird when that happens for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it just happens a lot. It happens more often than maybe I'm just aware of it. I will, if a skeptic said, well, you're just aware of it, so you connect the two. And, there could be that could be a really good explanation, but it just happens.
Well, they might be able to say that with the coincidence stuff. I can understand that, but not with the other things. Not with the other things. Not with seeing all of that, and no.
Yeah. There's just weird things. I mean, I've been sitting in the bath because we have a corner bath in our ensuite. And I've actually seen the tap move, because we have like lever taps. So not the ones you turn, you actually push them down. They're like sticks, because my arthritis in my hands, I find it hard to turn like taps and stuff like that. So my partner put these lever ones in. So all you have to do is push them down. And I mean, you kind of have to defy gravity for it to go back up again, but that's what happened.
And you're sitting there watching it do it?
Yeah.
And you're in the tub?
Yes.
Oh, heck no. I would freak out.
I topped it up because I'd run the bath and then it'd take, as per usual, I got distracted and then I wanted to top it up with some hot water. So I turned it on and then, the tap just did about I don't know, a quarter turn, like quarter upwards, and the water slowed down. Yeah, and I had to turn it back on again. I'm thinking that's happened twice actually. So
and let me guess, Sam, you quantify that as a little thing because you've had so much stuff go on, right? Like that's just a little thing.
Yeah, that's just a bit weird. That's one of those things. It's just a bit weird. So I don't think about it.
Oh no, goodness me, that's a lot of stuff. But I mean, we're giggling. It's some of the stuff is you just got to be lighthearted about it. But I don't like hearing your nightly ritual and how much it has traumatized you. I mean, it really has, and you've seen and experienced some really awful things.
Yeah, the black thing, whatever that was, that was the most scariest because it didn't give off everything else I've seen. It strikes me as being very human, if it makes sense. But this whatever this was is something different. And I haven't. All I had was that name, and I might be connecting things that don't connect really or something. But all we had was that name, that really weird name, and then all this started happening. So I guess I've connected them to each other. So that's what I always thought that black thing was.
I mean, you could be spot on, right? I mean, there's no way to know, but I mean, that's certainly where my brain goes because I don't see anything if they have free will to do good or do bad or whatever their actions are. Anything that does some of the things that you have talked about, then they're an a-hole. That's not a good thing. It's not. Then it chooses to be how it is, right? So I would imagine it looking exactly like that because it would be an intimidation, right? It scares you. It's not a good thing.
No, and like when we were saying about how if it was emotions, I think that was a great turning of the tables when I started to get really angry instead of feeling scared. Just scared and terrified when I started to get really angry, which, like I said, that's how I know it's not, well, if it is sleep paralysis, it's a form where you can actually get up out of bed and run around. So, when it started to get really close to me and was hovering right above my face, and I can't tell you, it was like suffocating. It's so close, it was like it was suffocating me. And it started to do that on a regular basis. And that's when I started to get really mad, jumping out of bed and throwing punches.
Yeah.
Because I was just so fed up with not being able to sleep.
It'll just be nice if these things could give you a little break, at least a break. More than a few weeks, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, maybe if it stopped, I don't know, I'd miss it or something. I don't know. But
maybe in a weird way you would. I mean, at this point, you're so used to it all, right? You'd be like,
yeah.
uh-oh. You'd probably be like, what did I do wrong, right? Like, or what's coming, or what, you'd probably be waiting, like, with the bated breath to see what's next.
Sometimes all my lights are staying off when I turn them off. And
you're like, that's weird. Now that's weird. If it stops.
That is.
Yeah.
Now it's getting really unusual.
Man, I can't imagine getting so used to that, though. To where that would, if it stopped, it would be stranger. Stranger things.
And that's why I'm at great pains. Like, and now I've told a few of these stories that I just know how it sounds, like, and all I can say is that I don't know why, and I honestly don't know why me, but yeah, it's just been this way for so long now that, you walk through the house and you feel something grab your arm or whatever, and you're just like, oh, okay.
Do you guys talk about this stuff quite a bit? Or, I mean, have you ever sat down and talked? Basically what I'm asking is, are you worried that sitting down for, 2.5 hours and talking about this stuff beginning to end in a home that still has activity is going to maybe kick things up?
No, I used to worry about that. So I'd say, let's go talk in the car. But now I'm just like, oh, well, it is what it is.
Right.
It would probably happen anyway. So, but yeah, I did used to be. And the only thing I'm superstitious about still is I don't ever say the name of the thing. That's spelled out.
Oh, you remember it? I thought you just didn't remember and said, "Oh, it was a gobbledygook." You know its name.
No.
Oh.
Yes, I do know. I know exactly its name. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so that stayed with me, but I don't. I have this thing about saying it. I won't say it. I don't know why. I just I'm not gonna name you.
And that was back when. Were you 6 or 7, or was your sister 6 or 7?
I was probably 7 or 8. I was definitely under 10.
And you still remember that name to this day. That's pretty incredible.
Yes, I do remember that name. We wrote it down because we would often write down what it told us. Mm-hmm. So we did write it down, and yes, I still remember it.
Wow. Well, then maybe there's something to that. But if you have that gut feeling to not say it out loud, then I would go with that gut feeling for sure.
Yeah. No,
I trust your judgment on that. So you won't hear me trying to get it out of you because I know better than that.
Well, it may be just silly superstition or something.
But probably not. If that's what your gut says, then nope, that's under I'm doing the little lock and key over my mouth right now,
Yes. I've written it down, but I've never spoken it. Never.
Well, there's probably something to that then, I have to say.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for sharing all this.
So sorry it turned into 2 hours.
No, you've heard the show. This is kind of, par for the course, and I love it. So,
I'm pretty sure I listened to your very first episode. I think that's how long I've been around this thing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm pretty sure. Way back in the day when you used to talk with what's their names? Oh, sorry, I'm getting old. My brain's going crazy.
With Sam and Ryan.
Yes. Way back then.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I've gone for whatever reason. I've had to go back and I'll re-upload stuff to YouTube or something. I think it was my David Paulides interview, and the audio was so bad and I talked so much, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I'm a little bit better now. I'm not perfect by any means. I could do a whole lot better, but oh goodness, I feel so bad for people that start from the beginning. I'm like, Oh, it gets better, everyone. Hang in there.
It's fine.
Oh, thanks, Sam.
Honestly, it's not like I can say I can't tell any difference, but you often interject with exactly what I would ask anyway. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Shannon.